The car on the right is a RAV4 EV. Mine was made in 2001, and it's been my primary commute vehicle since then. So let me say this again. Since 2001, I've been driving an electric car more than any other car. In fact, more than all other cars combined. Every day that I drive. And it's an electric car. Okay? Now, there's 3 lessons that I take away from that. First of all, I cannot even count on 2 hands. It would be many hands. The number of times that my wife and I are sitting in that car driving at 70, 75 miles an hour on the road to, say, the airport or to Ligonier, somewhere that's 50 miles away, going 75, listening to the radio, and National Public Radio no less, hearing about a story on NPR where the expert is explaining and the journalist is re-explaining that electric cars are not reliable, they really don't have range, they can't go at highway speeds, and therefore they're really not practical yet. And the number of times since 2001 that I've been sitting in this car driving, listening to that, and laughing about it, it's become kind of a laugh. At first I'd send letters to them, and then I kind of gave up after a while. So the gap between the reality of what the electric car is to me, in my heart because of how I use one, and the promise, or lack of promise, that I hear in the world of journalism, and often science, has always been impressive to me. The second thing that I gained from that car is people's interests. Since 2001, and to this day, with no decrease in efficacy, when I drive this car, everybody stops you and asks you about it. You go to Giant Eagle, the supermarket, and stop. People come to my car and ask me about it, and they want to know everything about it. They want to know how it runs. They want to know how you plug it in. They want to know how many cents per mile it is to drive it. And you soon have all this data on your lips because they care. I went to a parking garage in downtown Pittsburgh. We went to the symphony for a children's symphony performance. Went back out to the parking lot attendant. He was a very old gentleman. He'd been in World War II. Okay? He couldn't stop asking questions about this car. What kind of batteries do you have in it? I was driving tanks in World War II, and it was very interesting, sir, because our tanks had really bad lead-acid batteries, and they wouldn't start in the mornings after a cold night. But the Germans had these really nice tanks with nickel batteries in them, and they started no problem. What do you think of that? Can I get one of these cars? And these continue to this day. And it's a cut of society that cuts across socioeconomic boundaries. When we're doing educational programs in Braddock, I get just as many questions as when we're doing educational programs in Shadyside. And so it's really interesting the level of public interest and engagement with the idea of electric cars. The third thing, that car, since 2001, has been to a mechanic's shop precisely 0 times, ever. Okay? 0. There is no scheduled maintenance. There's no regular checkups. There's no oil to change. The only things I've ever done to the car is I've replaced the 4 tires. They wore out. The brakes have never worn out because guess what? It's got regenerative braking. So most of the time you're using the motor to slow down, so the brakes last a whole lot longer. And I can leave it at that, but the reliability of that car fundamentally, it's data point of 1. But it's a really interesting teaching lesson in the economics of electric cars, and actually it relates a little bit to the politics of electric cars. So that's the electric car mentality that I come to this project with. And as we enter the foray of electric cars, you can ask, where is the state of the art? What are people doing in the world of electric vehicle technology? And there's one picture that says it all, the battery. A particularly appropriate picture because this is the E95 battery that my car has, the RAV4 EV. I have 24 of those under the car. 24.5 kilowatt hours of power. So enough power to run your house for several days. Now, it's a telling picture because this is also the battery that we can no longer buy. Its patent was bought up by a gas company. Yes? Oh, yes. The battery is this big. And it's about a 1 kilowatt hour battery. So not too big. In fact, we'll show you afterwards in the garage the underside of the car, and you can see the batteries. So they sit on little plastic trays under there. But yeah, there's a patent dispute with this battery. We can't even buy it today. If a battery goes bad on my car, you have to reconstruct some kind of 12-volt battery. You can't replace it with an existing set.